Alright guys, welcome back to The Fugitive from 1993, starring Harrison Ford. This is a great movie. So it looks like we're back in Chicago, Illinois as we see flashbacks of Mrs. Kimble in torture, or Helen Kimble. And now for the gunshot, and now the police and the ambulance have arrived outside the Kimble home. And we see these Chicago PD detectives walking in who are also in both Above the Law and Code of Silence. We've seen those two movies, Steven Seagal and Chuck Norris. And we now meet Dr. Richard Kimble himself, played by Harrison Ford, good old Indiana Jones, as he is now being escorted outside his home since his wife Helen Kimble has been murdered in front of him, with the news out here reporting it to TV, telling whatever details they heard, as him and Helen Kimble just came back home from the hotel from a kids' research fund. Okay, so back at the flashback as we see Richard Kimble in tuxedo at the hotel where the fundraiser was happening from before, including his already dead wife Helen, played by Cella Ward, who's barely in the movie. Just, she's only in the flashbacks and that's about it. He's needed at the hospital. The hospital he works at is called the Cook County Memorial Hospital. And now the same two cops from Above the Law and Code of Silence are back for questioning, since now we are in another flashback of Richard Kimble at the hospital for that emergency call. And back to questioning, and so far Richard gave a statement that he got into a fight with the one who probably killed his wife. As Richard responds that the killer's right arm or left arm was missing, the killer had a fake limb. And now some questions about the house key, and that if he has a gun in his house too, as these other cops are just watching, maybe to waste time.
A mechanical arm. You find this man.
As this cop who brought out the fingerprint report shows that Richard Kimble's prints are all over the bullets, including the gun and whatever else was in that report. So now back to questioning, as these two cops think that Richard must have killed Helen Kimble because of her money, since she was rich, but Richard says he didn't, and tells the two about the guy with the fake arm killed Helen Kimble. And now some more dumb questions and the booking him part, Richard Kimble being booked. As the next day, Richard Kimble was in court and being sent to prison in a few moments with limited evidence, as his lawyer confidently tells everyone that Richard Kimble killed his wife, Helen Kimble, which he didn't. Spoiler alert, whatever, it's an old movie. And even states that she died in less than 5 minutes from brain hemorrhage, as Richard Kimble comes home to not know about this since he was downstairs. And the other lawyer, the female one, wants to hear the last phone call, wants to present the phone call Helen Kimble had, which was for 911. And we see the judge, who was also the general Under Siege. Yeah, I guess he recasted the entire Under Siege cast, the director, Andrew Davis. And after hearing that, the court sends him to prison, of course, minimal evidence and harsher sentence. So he is now in his prison uniform. So you see these prisoners in different colored uniforms. I thought all American prisons always used, or all of them around the country, only use orange jumpsuits. Maybe it's a state thing. And now they're being driven to the prison and directed by Andrew Davis. Like I said, who also directed two of Steven Seagal's famous movies, Above the Law and Under Siege, and Chuck Norris's movie Code of Silence. Check them out if you haven't. As these guys all look at each other, and yes, they do have an escape on their minds since they want to get out, and we see this fake act. So that worked, and looks like Richard Kimble was never part of this plan, and now the bus crashes down to the side of the hill, as everyone is now injured. And now this cop wants Richard's help since he's a doctor. So injured on a train track, but all these clowns run away, leaving Richard bringing out the injured driver, and of course his legs are handcuffed too. Okay, so he meets Copeland again, who was also, like I said, an Under Siege. Rips the leg cuffs off of Richard and now says goodbye to Copeland.
Hey, Copeland. You're good.
As the cops are here at the scene of the crash of the train and the prison bus, and now we meet U.S. Marshal Samuel Gerard of the FBI, or the United States Marshal Office, played by Tommy Lee Jones, Again, another actor from Under Siege. Like I said, I guess Andrew Davis was too lazy to recast new actors. Yeah. Well, he's not the only director to recast the same actors, you know. Okay, so that's that, and we also meet his colleague, Cosmo Renfro, played by Joe Pantoliano. And this actor is everywhere. I don't know about the newer movies of today, though. I don't know if he's in those movies, but yeah, Joe Pantoliano is like in a lot of known movies. Okay, so they look around everywhere, and we meet the surviving cop, the corrections officer, that was asking for Richard's help earlier.
Somehow I grabbed him and I pushed him onto the bus.
You're a brave man. You could have both been.
Yeah, you're full of shit. You couldn't push yourself out of the bus by yourself. We need someone else to do that too. Okay, so Samuel Gerard wants some details about this crash as the sheriff here gives up and leaves it for the FBI.
We're shutting it down. Wyatt Earp's here to mop up.
Before you go, we're going to need care to revise your statement, sir.
What?
Do you want to change your bullshit story, sir?
So this FBI agent found the cups belonging to the fugitive, which is Richard Kimble, and questions this corrections officer again to retell the story, and now tells his crew to start looking for the fugitive, Richard Kimble. Okay, so we now see the doctor himself, the good doctor himself, running again, coming out from the sewer, and we also see him now in mechanic clothes, and now Sam Gerard is hungry.
Well, think me up a cup of coffee and a chocolate donut with some of those little sprinkles on top. Will you, as long as you're thinking?
So back with Dr. Richard Kimble as he still is in the mechanic uniform and as he goes inside this hospital. So Richard takes out these bottles to treat the wound he has on his side of his, right above the kidney. Nice abs, by the way. And now this cop is here to print out Dr. Richard Kimble's wanted poster. And now that's done, he takes the patient's clothes since the nurse is now walking in after showing off his, physique, show off. So the nurse leaves, and now Richard Kimble is shaving off his beard, and now combs his hair, and is so hungry that he even eats the patient's food, and bumps into the copier, and also this.
6'1", 180, brown hair, brown eyes, beard. See anyone like that around? Doc. Yeah.
And even bumps into the bus driver that he saved from the train track, but shuts him up and steals the ambulance as his getaway car. Okay, so back with the FBI as Cosmo's reading Richard Kimble's description as this FBI agent, or U.S. Marshal agent, I don't know why I keep saying FBI. So the U.S. Marshal agent gets a call that the corrections officer, the bus driver, called in that he saw Richard Kimble leaving in an ambulance. And now the FBI have found Richard Kimble's exact location as he is headed towards the highway. Samuel Gerard is giving further instructions and finally traps Richard Kimble inside his tunnel and see that Richard Kimble has escaped into the sewer. So Sam and Cosmo and the other go in as Kimble is running as fast as he can like he's Jason Bourne. You know, the Matt Damon movies from the 2000s. Okay, so Samuel Gerard is on his own and slips down here. He finally sees Richard Kimble in person.
I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
So Kimble runs away again, and now Gerard takes out his backup gun, leaving Richard Kimble at the edge of the sewer, and jumps. And here comes out Cosmo Renfro again, as he is tired, so the FBI now wants a thorough search in the water for Richard Kimble as the next scene. We do see him survived the fall, as Sam Gerard is not giving up on this fugitive chase. As Richard is too tired now, and now it's nighttime as the search continues with Sam Gerard smoking a cigar and Richard Kimble having flashbacks of his wife Helen. And especially the guy that broke into his house who killed Helen Kimble. So now Richard's awake as Samuel Gerard and Cosmo Renfro are now boarding a jet with Richard Kimble, now walking again as he gets his hair dyed to cover up his gray hair since it is part of the wanted description, from the police. And now he gets a free ride. Lucky guy. And back at HQ as Cosmos found Richard Kimble's last whereabout, and as he was taken home by a woman who picked him up on the road And he stayed at her house for the night as Samuel Gerard requests Cosmo Renfro for his cousin's work van, since his cousin's like a repairman or something. And they need to do this undercover. And the next day, all these guys are there, and they're actually, U.S. Marshal agents pretending that they're civilians as they're, obviously undercover. To see that Richard and that girl who picked him up are not here. And it's actually Copeland's house, and that's his wife who's screaming. And Samuel Gerard kills Copeland.
Hands! Give me those hands! I just want to come!
Shut up.
There was honestly no need for that. And apparently Copeland's wife has been arrested. Now this Newman here has a deaf ear after hearing that bullet fired by Samuel Gerard. And after all that, we see Richard Kimble again in the famous part of Chicago, just like the same actors reappearing from past Steven Seagal and Chuck Norris movies. Same setting where Above the Law and Code of Silence also took place in, or same actor, same state. So Richard now uses the payphone and calls up his lawyer, Walter, and back at the FBI building as Samuel Gerard explains why he killed Copeland, even listens to Richard Kimble's conversation with his lawyer, Walter, and overhears everything, and they hear a train track noise and they go to the very location where the train is usually passing by, since this is where Richard... Okay, next scene, we are at this hotel, and we see this Dr. Charles Nichols, played by Jeroen Krabbe, a Dutch actor, as he leaves the hotel, who is Richard Kimble's colleague at the Cook County Memorial Hospital. As he drives out, we see this guy wanting to clean Nichols' glass.
No, I don't want it. No, thank you very much. I don't want it. No,
So Richard asks for some money, as he will see Charles Nichols later and back at HQ at the U.S. Marshal's office, debating if Richard Kimble really did kill his wife for her money. But Helen Kimble was, obviously she was richer than Richard Kimble. Who knows what she did for a living, but she had more money than Richard. And now Richard goes apartment hunting.
It's perfect.
Now back at Chicago PD HQ as they hand out wanted posters of Richard Kimble so that the local police can find him. Again, the same two detectives from Above the Law and Code of Silence. So next scene we see Richard Kimble again as he's back at the hospital where he works at and blends in well with the crowd and pretends like he doesn't speak English and goes inside the storage and sees all the fake limbs that the doctors keep if their patients are to lose their limbs due to anything.
Help you?
So as he leaves the prosthetic lab, Richard goes inside the men's locker room and steals the guy's outfit, who is actually the janitor, so that he can move on from his nonsense. So the FBI have also made it to Dr. Nichols' office in the same hospital as a question about Dr. Richard Kimble, and they noticed that Charles Nichols and Richard Kimble went to medical school together, and Nichols finally admits that he did saw Richard Kimble this morning asking for money, and Samuel Gerard is desperate to take Kimble in. And Nichols admits that Dr. Kimble is too smart for these guys here.
Smarter.
And now he's getting his photo retaken, some new clothes, so that he can replace the photo ID that he stole from the men's locker room, just like Death Wish 2. If you have seen Death Wish 2, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And now back to questioning. The entire hospital staff have known Richard Kimble for a long time now. Now that Richard's done that, he is making notes on the type of prosthetic arm that he was mentioning that guy had, who did kill Helen Kimble. And now Sam Gerard and Cosmo Renfro are searching someone's house, probably Richard's house. And now Richard is at his rented room and has nightmares of Helen getting attacked. And we finally see the guy who had the fake right arm and looks out the window to see that the Chicago PD is here, but it's not what you think it is.
Likes bringing out 12-year-old girls, huh?
So the foreign lady's chubby son is here to be arrested for selling drugs to 12-year-old girls. Well, that was a close call for Richard. He almost got caught. So Richard's back at the hospital after stealing that ID from the guy he saw in the locker room earlier, and like I said, that was a janitor whose ID and uniform he swiped, since his main priority is to be at the prosthetic limb lab again. And it's weird that the lab worker there doesn't recognize Dr. Richard Kimble. Maybe the clean-shaven look and the, dyed hair has confused her. So he got what he needed from the computer about the missing limb, and you won't believe what's going to happen next. The guy who did get arrested, the chubby son, was all staged so that he can tell the Chicago and the U.S. Marshal's Office that Richard Kimble is staying at his place and pretending to have a Polish accent too. Wow.
You mean to tell me that this is the guy staying in your mother's basement?
That's what I'm telling you.
So now walks out Richard as he sees this hospital emergency recurring. Okay, so back at the rented room where Richard's staying out with Gerard and everyone else searching the place, as Richard Kimble is pretending to be stupid here with this doctor here, played by Julianne Moore, telling Richard to move the patient next to him. Now back at the rented room as Samuel Gerard finds out the exact hospital where Richard Kimble works at, as Richard now helps the kid out, and the doctor here is curious of where the kid with the sensitive chest is at, since she saw the janitor walk away with him. And she reaches the janitor and questions him harshly and even rips off the ID on his chest to call security. As Julianne Moore chases after Richard Kimble, and here comes Samuel Gerard and Newman again to question Julianne Moore to know that a strange guy is disguised as a janitor. It leaves Julianne Moore to go home, and we end it here. Now here comes out Cosmo again, questioning why a janitor would be here, and this guy in the fancy shirt rudely goes between the two as they talk to each other, and now they follow him. Since Richard did say the man who broke into his house, who killed Helen Kimble, did have a missing left arm. And back on the run as Dr. Richard Kimble calls in as someone about the prosthetic limb, as he calls every one of those guys with the fake arm, and the same with Samuel and Cosmo searching it up. Next scene we see a St. Patrick's Day festival as Richard Kimble now goes to his government building, where he will see the guy with the prosthetic limb, and takes the elevator up here, surrounded by cops and others. As Richard Kimble goes to see this Driscoll with the limb, as he has to run through security first, and the cops there are suspicious. And here comes out Driscoll, but Richard remembers that he doesn't have to talk to him because he doesn't have a prosthetic limb, and just gets up and leaves.
You got 5 minutes.
Who the hell are you?
That was a waste of time. I don't know why would you include that in the movie. And it's a good thing Samuel Gerard did take the stairs, since he has finally spotted Richard Kimble. And it does get funny here, by the way.
Buster, this man in a blue top coat waving a gun and screaming. And a woman. No, let him go! Let him go! No!
Oh man. And the chase continues. As Richard is caught between the door and gets out, and then blends in with the St. Patrick's Day parade. As Richard Kimble does get away, leaving Gerard confused again. Next scene, we are back at HQ for more questioning, and the next morning we see Richard again in new clothes. Now tries to call someone up at this pub and goes out to see the same detective from before, and now breaks into his apartment building only to see that the same guy who broke into his house and killed Helen Kimble, who's actually a cop by the name of Frederick Sykes, and even sees a fake arm he's been looking at for all along. And even finds his group picture and more pictures behind it, and notices one of the guests from the kid's fundraiser he was with, where Richard Kimble was also called to look at, which was an emergency call from way in the beginning of the movie. So the next scene, we see the team looking at a newspaper article on Richard Kimble, and now Gerard gets a call from Kimble as Cosmo puts a wiretap on it. And now Richard says he's actually solving a puzzle of this entire mystery and leaves the phone. The U.S. Marshal's Office have tracked his location once again, where he called Gerard. And they get there to see that Richard called from Frederick Sykes' house. We knew that. And we see Frederick Sykes himself walking home as he sees his house. He's being invaded by the U.S. Marshal's Department, or he thinks they're thieves, and is questioned by Gerard if he knows anything about Richard Kimble. So we do see his fake arm and says he wasn't there when Helen Kimble was killed, and even questions how he lost his arm.
How'd you lose that arm? In the line of duty.
So now the crew leaves and tells Newman here to find out more, who was also in Under Siege. Yep, another actor from Under Siege. And Gerard leaves as we're now at the Hilton Hotel where Charles Nichols is at right now, as the receptionist gives him a message, a paper message, which is actually to pick up the phone to pick up a phone call from Richard. Richard tells Charles Nichols that Lentz killed Helen, but Nichols says Alec Lentz has been dead since last summer. Wasn't Richard operating on Lentz earlier? So now at the convention, as Gerard and Cosmo are back questioning Nichols again, as he doesn't know who the guys in the picture are, Sykes and Frederick Sykes and the guy next to him.
Doesn't make any sense.
I should have been a doctor.
Look at this blow up. This guy.
So the two cops go to Cook County Memorial Hospital to find Richard again, as the cops are watching outside Sykes' house. Since he's under surveillance. And Richard is back getting some medicines from Bowen's ear.
Say, whatever happened to that thing with your wife?
It's not over yet.
And now the fire department is here as the two cops are at the hospital questioning about Alec Lentz, and he really did die last summer, according to the receptionist here. So Richard Kimble meets up with Jane Lynch to get some observations, a blood sample from a liver or something like that, and now the two marshals are questioning Bones if he did see Richard Kimble, and even Sykes has made it there too.
Liver. Kathy, you beauty. Now, if you gentlemen would excuse me, I have some prior obligations to attend to. Mr. Roosevelt.
As Richard now knows about the liver samples, which were signed by Alec Lentz. Those liver samples were signed by Alec Lentz the same day he was killed, which he did half of them. And the other half was signed by someone Richard knows personally, probably his wife.
Where you going?
See a friend.
So back in the marshal's office, as Newman here tells Gerard that the liver samples were signed by Lentz, we know, and the rest by Charles Nichols. Okay, so it wasn't Helen Kimble. Thought you got killed for that.
Right out.
You got it.
Don't let him give you any shit about your ponytail either.
I won't.
Well done, young man.
My pleasure, sir.
Seagal, maybe he became a Steven Seagal fan after doing Under Siege with them. Yeah, maybe. Okay, next scene we see Sykes again as he spots Richard while talking on the phone, probably to kill him. So Cosmo also now reads out the description how Alec Lentz murdered, and this agent walks in to tell Sam that Kimble did call Sykes during this entire movie one time. Now wants him at the station. Samuel Gerard wants Sykes to come to the station, but this agent says Sykes has escaped his house. So now on the Chicago subway, as Richard is sitting, and this guy looks like he's part of the plan for Sykes to kill Richard, or after seeing his picture in the paper. So Sykes shoots the cop that was contacting the HQ for backup after seeing Kimble, and even beats up Sykes and leaves him there handcuffed to the pole. Now escapes, and once again Sam and Cosmo are running after Kimble, as Kimble runs to the hotel where the convention is happening with Charles Nichols there, since he is the key speaker for that convention, medical convention. Okay, and now they run inside the hotel to get Kimble, the U.S. Marshals agents, since the detectives over here were blocking their way, since they want to take over the case. And Dr. Nichols here is very nervous.
It is also noteworthy that this drug... Let's stay calm, people.
Okay, so Dr. Nichols says that he'll be right back and knows everything. Richard knows everything. He knows everything that the drug Provazic he founded was made for Devlin McGregor, the same employer that Frederick Sykes is working for, which is all a plan to make money off of that drug Provazic. And that Alec Lentz Alec Lentz's research, RDU-90, was a stolen presentation for this convention, which belonged to Lentz since Charles stole that idea. But we really don't know why Helen Kimble was killed. I don't get that part. Whatever, it's a movie. And now a fight between Nichols and Kimble as the U.S. Marshals Office agents are now here looking for Kimble, as the Chicago PD has sent out a sniper rifle firing from a helicopter to finally eliminate Richard Kimble once again, the fugitive. As these two guys, Charles and Richard, fall into the elevator. So everyone has been located inside the laundry room. So Sam Gerard knows everything. Samuel Gerard knows everything about Richard Kimble, and we see Nichols pushing this thing towards Cosmo and hits him. And finally this.
Your car, Richard.
You know, I'm glad. I need the rest.
I need the rest too. Still don't know why he killed Helen exactly. I don't know why Helen was even murdered the first time. Maybe she just got in the way. Maybe she knew about Alec Lentz, who knows, or anything about Provazic or RDU-90. Maybe to annoy Dr. Richard. So we see Frederick Sykes getting arrested finally, and Cosmo on a stretcher. Now Dr. Richard Kimble is being arrested, but Gerard takes his cuffs off.
Thought you didn't care.
And that's it. The Fugitive from 1993. Good movie, good stuff. Half of the Under Siege cast is in this movie. So other directors like to recast the same actors, that's fine. Well, not 90% of the cast. By the way, this movie is based off of the TV show of the same name, The Fugitive, from the 1960s, starring David Jansen. He died very early in his mid-40s, age 46, I believe. I've seen a few episodes, not bad. There is a sequel made solely for the return of U.S. Marshal Deputy Samuel Gerard, Tommy Lee Jones. It's called U.S. Marshals. It's a movie. I've never seen it. I don't know anything about it. Watch it someday. It's on Netflix, I think. You can watch it anytime. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time in Fight Club 1999 with Brad Pitt and Edward Norton. Did the Italian Job recently. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Take care. See you soon and watch away. Check out The Fugitive from 1993, the movie, as well as the TV show from the 1960s with David Jansen. Take care.